Greetings and peace. I hope you and yours are doing well today, wherever you might be watching this from. And I hope you're having a great month of December 2021 as we finish off this year and head into the new one with all of its wonders and excitements and the challenges and rewards alike that await for us in the coming new year. So the presentation for today that I would like to do is the Sufi and Masonic comparison of the teachings of al-Ghazali. Al-Ghazali is a great scholar and teacher that I have followed for a long time in my journey, and both in my journey as a Sufi and as a Freemason. And I realized I walk both of these paths, and I take the effort to realize of the esoteric teachings that are implied for self-improvement, mastery of self, getting closer to God, fighting with your lower self, all of those things which a man is looking to perfect in his journey to be that perfect master. So Imam Al-Ghazali always stood out to me as I simultaneously walked both paths, and something that I wanted to do to offer my perspective on his teachings from my analysis and from my perspective. So I hope you enjoy the presentation that I'm going to offer, and I hope you're able to take something away from it. And as always, thank you for always sticking by me. Before we go into his teachings, first we will learn a little bit about Imam Al-Ghazali and who he really was. He was born in the year 1058 and passed away at the age of 52, 53, around that time frame, in the year 1111. So he did have a esoteric significance even in the year of his death with all of the ones. He was born in Iran in the Khorasan area, and he was a very prominent Jewish scholar, mystic, theologian, teacher, professor. He was basically the master of it all when it came to esoteric sciences, and he took the time to master everything too. And by studying under Imam Juwani himself, becoming a master and following that mystic path of the things that he was destined to do, he mastered all of his subjects very astutely. And he also wrote many books. He was a prominent scholar, and he defended Islam against those that were ignorant, because he knew the esoteric teachings of the deep Islam that your average Muslim or your average person that looks at Islam from the outside is not able to perceive. So that's what he did. And also teaching in Baghdad, in the Darul Hikmah, which is basically like a very high-level institution for religious and mystical and social sciences, and he was a prominent teacher and professor. So what happened one day was he had a spiritual crisis, just like every other mystic that we read in history does. And he came to realize, what am I really doing with my life? And he took the time to just analyze himself. He had like this inner crisis about himself, God, and purpose of life, those things that are usually mandatory for a man who's destined for greatness like he was. So he left everything, his monies, his professional career, job, like he had it made for him, and he left everything for the sake of God, for his beloved, just like all the Sufis do, who are in the aspect of fana, the annihilation of the self. And he started to live a very aesthetic lifestyle, and he came to realize about this totality of this inner struggle that we're facing, because that's basically where the tenets of his teachings is, to master your own inner self and develop that relationship with God. And if you can do that, then basically you have everything in this world. And it took for him to gain everything materially, successfully, career-wise, leave everything, and come to that conclusion in his journey. And this is basically a prospect that's supported by many Islamic theologians and scholars, that every 100 years Allah, God, sent someone to revive the deen. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the final prophet, but this is a revelation supported by the last two verses of Surah Baqarah, which is the second surah in the Holy Quran, and the last two verses basically tell you that we make no distinction between any of the messengers or the teachers or the guides that come. So this is basically that every 100 years or every century somebody will be sent in the aspect of representing the Islamic community and to defend the faith and to make sure everything is being carried out accordingly, because each generation, each millennia, Each century has its own challenges, advancements. So with the times, this theory is supported that God, the Creator, will send everybody every century to deal with its own challenges to make sure the faith keeps on going, to adapt with the times, basically. Now, what Imam Al-Ghazali basically points out to us is that we're dealing with these couple elements which are there to basically destroy you if you're on the path of self-mastery. The shaitan, which is the devil or the aspect of the darkness. Sin, dunya, which is like love for the world. Those that are very materialistic and have a lot of love for this world. The nafs, which is your lower self. Like if you're stuck in your lower nature in terms of lust, envy, jealousy, hatred, anger, all of those things which do not serve you. Your ego, when you think that things are about you and it's really not the case in many ways. He also stressed the importance of the Holy Quran being an esoteric book, that it is a revealed book in the aspect of it being out there available for the public, but they have inner codes in it and inner mysteries that only a few are able to decode. And that's something that he stressed also, is the importance of studying your religion properly, which is also important for the Mason as well, because the Mason is also on his journey of self-mastery and getting close to the grand architect of the universe to do the right thing in this world with the time that he's been given. So it all falls in line with what Imam Ghazali is teaching about fighting the dunya, nafs, shaitan, ego, getting close to God, and realizing the aspects of self-mastery. Another few things that he has stressed in his teachings is the importance of tawheed, which is the oneness of God. To have faith in God no matter what, which is what the Mason does as well. And also the tawakkul Allah. And tawakkul is basically to believe. So tawheed and tawakkul is basically to believe in the oneness of the Creator, in the grand architect of the universe. In whichever way you perceive that divinity, it's all part of that one totality and one truth, just like the Masonic Brotherhood teaches. And tawakkul, which is to have complete faith that whatever happens in your life is shaping you up for all the things that you're meant to do, people that you're meant to see, places that you're meant to go. It's all relative. And that's what he stressed also, which is in alignment with the Masonic path. And another thing that stood out to me, which he really stressed, is the importance of prayer, meditation, and sharpening your senses. Being alert, being aware, who, what, where, why, all those things, like watching everything, being observant. Because right now we live in a society where people just reply. They don't reply to understand or take the time to listen to somebody or sharpen their senses or put yourself in somebody else's shoes and see things from their perspective. And also we're lacking prayer and meditation in a fast-paced society, in a dog-eat-dog world, where it's all about just trying to get ahead in a world where you're not going to take anything with you anyway, except your deeds. And that's what Imam Ghazali realized, being a prominent professor, good career, good income, had everything made for him, and he had that inner crisis realizing that, what is any of this for? I'm going to leave all of this behind. The real wealth is what good did you do for yourself and others, and getting close to the Creator. And in Sufism, they tell you Allah, God, is the only reality. Everything else is an illusion. That perfect being trying to understand itself through itself. So the importance of prayer and meditation and sharpening your senses is very much stressed, which is important for both the Sufi and the Mason. This is a short passage from one of Imam Al-Ghazali's books. And what he states here basically stood out to me for those that are walking the Sufi and Masonic path, on why it's important to realize that when you walk this path, obstacles will come after you to try to derail you. But you must keep your faith no matter what happens. This is from Minhaj ul-Abidin, and this is titled The Seven Valleys. Know, my brethren, that worship is the fruit of knowledge, the benefit of life, and the capital of virtues. It is the object of men of noble aspirations, having keen inward sight. It is there and their everlasting paradise. I am your Creator, says the Quran, Worship me, you will have your recompense, and your efforts will be rewarded. Worship then is essential for man, but it is beset with difficulties and hardships. It has stumbling blocks and pitfalls in its tortuous path, which is haunted by cutthroats and goblins, while helpers are scarce and friends are few. But this path of worship must be dangerous, says the Prophet, peace be upon him. Paradise is surrounded by sufferings and covered by tribulations, while hell abounds in ease and free enjoyment of passions. Poor man, he is weak, his engagements are heavy, times are hard, and life is short, but journey from here to hereafter being unavoidable. If he neglects taking necessary provisions, he is sure to basically fall astray. That's what it basically alludes to with this passage. And it's telling you all the things which are relative for the Sufi and the Masonic path, where it tells you to circumscribe your desires, live your life within due bounds, and how the Mason is trying to smooth out his ashlar. So from a rough ashlar, it becomes a smooth ashlar, mastery of self, and connected to the grand architect of the universe in his endeavors and in his heart, mind, body, and soul, sharpening his awareness and senses to become the perfect master. And to realize that in your life, the harder, the better. Those that have an easy life, they're not being challenged by the divine. And that's basically what it is. The harder your life is, the more chances you are being given to grow as an individual and not just master your own self, but get closer to the divinity, the grand architect. And that's the reality that we're dealing with. And it tells you about cutthroats and goblins and how even the Mason and the Sufi both have to be aware of their surroundings because of the type of work that they're doing, and know that you have to keep your totality of your faith in Almighty God in terms of dealing with the profane and the aspect of dealing with this world, and how many in the world will not understand the path that you walk, but that is your path alone, only for you to understand, for your journey between you and the Creator. And realize when you walk these initiatic paths, whether it's Sufism or Freemasonry, just don't think it's all going to be sunshine and rainbows. Just like how Imam Al-Ghazali experienced his inner crisis. Everyone experiences that. That's just part of this path, because you wouldn't be who you are if it weren't for those hard times and struggles and moments of lowness. They make you who you are. It makes you wiser. It makes you stronger. It makes you better. Good men becoming better men. And that's exactly what it is. You have to walk this path, and it's yours to walk, and yours alone. And you come to your own realizations, your own epiphanies, and realize, who am I really? What am I doing here? Did I just come here to pay taxes, pay bills, and go to this 9-to-5 thing and just die one day in this never-ending cycle? We're in a system that's not designed to give you any type of break, a continuous cycle. You got to realize and take time to hone your senses, to hone your life physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and realize, what am I doing in terms of my studies, in terms of my self-mastery, know thyself, know thy Lord, know thy Lord, know thyself, those kind of things. And that's what basically Imam Al-Ghazali is saying when he's saying that, my brethren, that worship is the fruit of knowledge. And you have to basically get into the aspect of knowledge and basically realize these elements that you're dealing with. Shaitan, the sin of this world, the love of this world, the nafs, your lower self, your ego, where we see everything is just about, I guess, we live in a world, how to best put it that way, I guess you could say, is there's no regard for each other anymore. There's no regard for self and others. And we need a society where we're coming together. And the Sufi path and the Masonic Brotherhood both exemplify that. When we're on the level in our love for God and our love for each other, we need that in today's world more than ever, in a world that's falling apart, where connections are getting weaker, relations are getting weaker, the structure of jobs, education, knowledge, everything is drastically changing on a level I've never seen before. So this is important, and a responsibility for the Sufis and Masons of this world to be the light of representation in your communities and wherever you're your life places you, in your homes, workplaces, schools, etc. Wherever your presence is demanded, be the light of that place and show others by being the exemplar of your etiquette, of your behavior, and just letting somebody know that there is still some hope in the world. But not, and also realizing to keep your faith in God. And then the path can be treacherous, but eventually the fruits of your labor do pay off when you keep your faith in God, in yourself, and in each other. And that's, I believe this message can benefit both Sufis and Masons alike, and anybody on any initiatic path. Now I will go through my favorite quotes from Imam Al-Ghazali and the teachings implied in them, and give you my perspective from my Sufi and Masonic point of view and perspective on where I see his teachings. So we'll start with the first one. Declare your jihad on 13 enemies you cannot see: egoism, arrogance, conceit, selfishness, greed, lust, intolerance, anger, lying, cheating, gossiping, and slandering. If you can master and destroy them, then you will be ready to fight the enemy you can see. Now this is very important because the word jihad is often misinterpreted by those in the West, but the greatest jihad that you can do is basically conquer your own self, because you are your own greatest enemy and your own greatest friend. Whichever path with your free will that you decide to choose, it's ultimately you. And that's what Imam Al-Ghazali is teaching us, is that when there are no enemies within, there are no enemies without. You do, like what the spiritual people call these days, the co-creating of the reality. And what Omar Khayyam also mentioned one time about I myself am heaven and hell. So what Imam Al-Ghazali is teaching is of that same reference, that you have to remove those vices from your heart, mind, body, and soul, so you can be that great being that you're meant to be, whether you're a Sufi, Mason, or any initiatic path that you're on. It's important that you address these matters and realize, I get the ego removed, I'm not arrogant, I'm not conceited, I'm not selfish, not greedy, not lust, I'm not operating on hatred or intolerance. And anybody who's from these said initiatic paths, who's operating in any of these realms, is not being a true representation of that path. It doesn't matter if they have a PM or 33 next to their name, or they're supposedly a Sufi master. It doesn't matter. They don't have that connection with God unless these issues are addressed. And it's about being a good human being. It's not being arrogant about your titles and who you are and what you've done. That doesn't mean anything. This reality, you leave everything behind. It's about what good did you do for yourself and what good did you do for others. That is how people will remember you. And the upliftment of the human heart and helping each other and loving each other, that's how people will remember you. That's how you will basically continue to live on in the hearts and minds of the people. And that is what defines us, my brothers and sisters, as true human beings, as true initiates, regardless of your worldly rank. And Imam Al-Ghazali giving us the perfect example of him being a prominent author, scholar, theologian, great professor in this Darul Hikmah in Baghdad in the Islamic Golden Age. And he left it all for his love of God, self-mastery, and just on the aspect of the pursuit of knowledge, just like how any true Mason or true Sufi would. So anybody who's in these paths that's operating in any of these realms is not a true representation of those paths, regardless of their accolades or high ranks. If they were able to make those, it still doesn't have any value if you operate in these realms, because of the reality of the human being and how fragile life is, where you're here one day and you're not here the next day. But your real wealth that you do carry with you is, of course, the upliftment of each other, the good things you did for self and others, and how people will remember you when you leave this earth. That's exactly what defines how wealthy you really are, and what defines you as the human being and the type of life that you led. And this is the importance that Imam Al-Ghazali teaches us in these teachings. With this one, Imam Al-Ghazali teaches us the importance of being a genuine person, one who's really doing things to do it, not just to, gain pros and pearls or accolades of this world. Sincerity is that all your deeds be for God, and that your heart be not gladdened by men's praise, nor that you care about their censure. So we live in a society, this is very important because this was written like 1,000 plus years ago. And if Imam Al-Ghazali could see the type of clout-chasing society we have today, he would definitely reiterate these teachings again, like how I am today with you. So sincerity is that all your deeds be for God. And then you're not going around looking for pros and pearls, because the true Mason and true Sufi, he won't let the left hand know what the right hand is doing, and vice versa. But now we live in a social media age where everything, even the good that you do for others, has to be documented. And that doesn't have any value to it, because you remove the value from it in many ways. There are some things you keep between yourself and the Creator, and the importance of honoring the aspect of silence and integrity and character between yourself and others, and the type of life that you're doing, that you're living to lead. There's a lot of unseen humanity that I see goes on daily, and people are feeding the homeless, they're just paying somebody's bill, they're helping somebody out with groceries, and that's something you keep to yourself, between you and God, because the observer of all, the creator of all creation on this earth, he knows your heart. He knows who you are. He knows what you did. He knows your intention. And that's worth 1,000,000 times more than any social media like, or somebody giving you a good comment or a thumbs up or a pat on the back. Because men's praise, or getting praise from men, is, you have it today, you don't have it tomorrow, right? So, but the Creator, the source that you originate from, in whichever way you perceive it, is everlasting, which outlives this life and the totality of all existence. So there is a life that we lead where you have to be sincere for your love for God. And we have these people that are quoting scriptures, but they're treating each other with hatred, right? You have these people who are basically have high accolades from said organizations, but they're treating each other badly, just to do the dirty politics and get ahead in their positions and whatever that they're trying to do, not realizing that the same organization you're a part of is teaching you that you're not going to take away anything except what good did you do for yourself and others. But they let the lower nature of this world and their own self get the best of them, regardless of their rank and background. And anyone that gets involved in that kind of world, arrogance, religious hypocrisy, or any other kind of spiritual hypocrisy, where you're saying one thing but you're doing the other, you're promoting hatred against others, you're promoting division, then you're in a place where your praise is not sincere. Where those people that worship or go to church on Sundays or pray 5 times a day, and I know some of them, that they are not good people. That praise and that basically that worship is not counted for because it's not sincere. Because worship comes in all levels of form. It comes in all levels possible. Your conduct, your etiquette, how you treat other people, not being a religious hypocrite, not being a hypocrite in said organizations, whether it's the Sufi or Masonic path, where you're preaching one thing but doing the other, and not equally respecting everybody, or being inclusive of all human beings, which is a struggle that the Western world, even in the post-2020 world, is still struggling with. So you need to be truly sincere. Are you truly about diversification and loving everyone, or you just want that on your resume? Or that you worked at a diverse school, but in reality you live in a totally different neighborhood that has nothing to do with those people, in your own ethnic enclaves and communities, and the illusion of the melting pot. So that is the reality that we're dealing with. Who are you as a sincere human being? Are you really who you say that you are? Or are you just going along to get along? And that's basically what Imam Al-Ghazali is teaching us from my Sufi and Masonic interpretation, is that you have to do the right thing and be sincere and an honest and genuine human being in your dealings with self and others, no matter which path you follow. Because any day could be your last day on this earth. Tomorrow is not promised to any of us, especially in the times that we're living now. So make the best of it. So one day when you do face the grand architect of the universe, it is with a clean heart, mind, body, and soul, knowing you didn't do anybody wrong, and you did the right thing with the time that was allotted to you. Not a moment too soon, and not a moment too much or less. And that's the importance of the true rich man and the true sincere man, or the true religious man, true Mason, true Sufi, true all of that. Be sincere in your endeavors, and don't be about hatred, division, or arrogance of any kind, because no one gets away with anything, even when they think that they do. In this teaching, Imam Al-Ghazali teaches us the importance of always traveling light and always keeping a light heart, and realizing the aspect of life, death and rebirth, and all those things and obstacles and challenges we will face in our spiritual journey. Purifying the soul is serious. The hereafter is ahead. The world is behind. Death is near. The journey is far. And the provisions are light. So basically, he's telling you to be one of a pure heart, mind, body, and soul. About your heart truly being weighed and having it being lighter than a feather. Always traveling light and keeping your heart light, letting it go of resentment, ego, shaitan, and the nafs and the lower self, and the love of this world and the materialism of this world, all of those things. And what he's realized and what he's telling you is that it's so important that the greatest thing you could do in this life is purifying of the self, of your soul. It's like how the Mason spends his whole life chipping away at his imperfections until his rough ashlar becomes a smooth ashlar, for the aspect of self-mastery and for his faith in God, the grand architect of the universe. And everyone's journey is different in their own way. That's why he's saying it. This is serious, that the hereafter, the life after this world, is ahead. The world is behind you. Death is near. The journey is far. And your provisions are light, meaning that any day you could either have a short journey, a medium journey, a long journey. There are some people on this earth that leave at a young age, some leave at a middle age, some leave at a long age, an elderly age. You're always needed for this moment, and you're needed for this earth with your presence, with all the things that you're meant to do, people that you're meant to see, places that you're meant to go. And when your purpose is fulfilled, whether you're young, middle age, or old, not a moment too much or too less, at that perfect time, that's when your presence will be demanded in the next life. So that's why you're always realized that the journey could be far or it could be near, but always pack light and travel light in terms of your conscience, your ego, your heart, keeping everything pure, going to sleep every night with forgiveness in your heart, knowing that, you know what, this is it. I'm going to sleep. Who knows if I'll wake up or not? Because your whole world and your whole life can turn upside down in a matter of seconds. You just don't know. And that's why we're always stressed the importance of tomorrow not being promised to any of us. Forgive, pray, meditate, what Imam Al-Ghazali stressed to us, and also what's stressed in the Sufi path and the Masonic path, is the importance of realizing the inner tawheed and tawakkul, trusting God, and realizing the importance of sharpening your senses, your prayer, your meditation, fighting the evils of this world, fighting the evils of this self, to realize, who am I? What am I here for? What is all of this about? Like, what is it? What am I doing? And that's exactly what he says, that you're here to do good for yourself and others, not knowing the length of your journey, what the importance of packing light, traveling light, and keeping yourself light. That's when you realize the beauty as you take everything one day at a time. And that's how it should be. This one, Imam Al-Ghazali teaches us that the most important thing you could do is know thyself. Never have I dealt with anything more difficult than my own soul, which sometimes helps me and sometimes opposes me. So you're dealing with these two forces that are part of the cosmology of creation, and inevitably and consequently that is within yourself as well, where one thing will support you and one thing will oppose you. That is just the nature of the dichotomy that we've been created in. And to realize, to know thyself is to know thy Lord. To know thy Lord is to know thyself. Where all holy scriptures are telling you to look within yourself to find God, right? Whether it's the Bible, kingdom of heaven is within. Holy Quran, Surah 50, it's telling you that Almighty God is closer to you than your jugular vein. All the Sufi traditions and what Imam Al-Ghazali is teaching you is to act on the instinct of the heart, while the modern world tells you about the gut instinct. But the chambers of the heart and the esoteric meaning of the heart is also very important in its own significant way, and why the teachings of the heart should not be neglected, and why the heart and the connections that it has to self and other is very important, and why we're in this journey together where we need our brotherhoods, where we need each other, and why these little groups are around with Sufism, different paths, because we need each other. We're walking each other home. That is the ultimate truth. We're walking each other home, and we owe this love and light to one another. But at the same time, what he's teaching you here is that ultimately it's yourself. It's you. No matter which path you follow, no matter which endeavor you're taking for self-mastery and knowledge and getting close to God, it's your heart, it's your soul, it's your lower self. You are your own greatest enemy and your own greatest friend. And you have to remove all of the doubt, suspicion, and ego and whispering and agendas of the evil ones from your heart, mind, body, and soul, so you can stay focused on your path, stay focused on your purpose, realize who is it that you really are, find out what is your gift for humanity, what is your talent that can help humanity in your own way, because we're all unique in our own ways, and we all have a contribution to make in our own ways too. Because if you did not have a purpose, or if you did not serve a purpose, then you would not be here. Because creation cannot be without any kind of purpose. Whether it's animal, man, flowers, birds, trees, the elements around you, everything is part of that one totality of the Creator, experiencing itself through itself. So if it doesn't have a purpose, it wouldn't be here. So that's why it tells you to have regard for yourself too. Just like how he discussed about the journey, that you're here as long as you're needed for. And there's not a moment too soon or too less or anything of that nature. So have faith in yourself, have regard for yourself, give value to yourself. If I woke up today, I'm needed for something. God needs me for something. I'm still here. I'm still here on this earth doing my thing. That means my existence still serves a purpose, with my journey still being active in this realm and in this existence. I'm still around, and I should not let doubt or suspicion or ego or any whisperings of the diabolical nature deviate me away from my path. It's like what he said in the Seven Valleys, the interpretation of his book that I read earlier in this presentation, that when you walk this path, it's not going to be easy. It is a treacherous path with goblins and haters and cutthroats. You're going to find them in every path, even in organizations that are about good values. That is the ultimate truth. People are going to be people. So you have to have that conviction within your own self. Who am I? What do I stand for? And what do I need to do? And constantly give yourself affirmations every day, so you stay focused on your path with unshakable conviction. And that what will keep you going. That's ultimately your greatest wealth in many ways. It's you. When there are no enemies within, there are no enemies outside that can destroy you in any way. Because once you realize that God is with me within my heart, what power on this earth can really stop you from fulfilling your purpose? And all your provisions of your life and needs will be provided for when you do realize that. Just like when God asked King Solomon, what is it that you desire? And he could have said, I want fame, fortune, women, money, all that stuff. He said, I only want wisdom. And just because of that, God gave him everything else too, on top of that. So when you live a life searching yourself to know thyself, searching wisdom, searching other things, then don't worry about how your needs will be fulfilled. Everything will work out for you accordingly. And I'm I'm a testimony of that in my own way. As I look back on my life, I realized that every time I thought I was being rejected from something good, I was actually being redirected to something better. You must convince your heart that whatever Allah has decreed is most appropriate and most beneficial for you. Now, this is very good for those that are on initiatic paths and sometimes get discouraged if certain events or things don't go their way. This is basically telling you that the grand architect of the universe, in his divine design and ultimate wisdom, is indeed the best of all planners. Like it says, Allah is indeed the best of all planners. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because you realize that something that you were rejected from or something that didn't work out, let's say a job or a relationship, you were basically being protected from something, because the Creator knows your good nature, who you are, what you stand for, and sometimes it will keep you away from situations, scenarios, and peoples and groups that will not serve you in that same purpose or return that same value to you with the same time, effort, or any kind of other resources that you might be investing in any said endeavor or relation, etc. So always have faith in the higher plan, what Imam Al-Ghazali is teaching, that everything happens for a reason. And let's say there was a scenario a year ago or 2 years ago, 5 years ago, where something didn't work out for you. And it takes time. Maybe it'll take a year for you to realize, to observe the situation. Yeah, that I'm glad that this didn't work out for me, but this situation worked out for me. It placed me in a much more convenient location, right? That's just the way things work. And, a recent example that I can give from my point of view is I was in London recently, and there was a place that I was trying to get, and unfortunately that place was booked. I couldn't get it. So I looked into another place. At first I was upset because I had liked that place and I wanted to go back there. And then I realized, what is this other place here? So I checked that out, and you know what? That was the most convenient thing that I could have done for myself, because it put me right next to a train station where I could go wherever I wanted to go and be in a central line area where it could bring me right back home. So I was able to do everything that I wanted to do and be in a convenient, time-saving and money-saving location where I could use public transportation to get around, do my thing, watch all of the activities, do all of the sightseeing, and be back at home in a span of minutes with a convenient location and area. So just realize, whether it's a job or a location or a relationship, where if one relation didn't work out, who knows how many problems or disasters God saved you from. Or if one job didn't work out, who knows, there was something else better planned for you. And this is what the Mason and the Sufis encouraged, and what Imam Al-Ghazali is telling you. Tawakkul, have faith in God no matter what happens. The Mason always puts his faith in God no matter what happens, and walks his path with full conviction and comfort, knowing everything shall work out for him. The Sufi, the same regard, tawakkul, to have complete faith in Allah, the grand architect of the universe, directing your life through the ups and downs, knowing it's all part of a divine plan on the cosmos, and your beautiful life being painted on the canvas. And God is the ultimate painter and ultimate planner, and why you should keep the faith and keep it moving. Travel light with a smile on your face. Sometimes it's for your own good. To completely trust in God is to be like a child who knows deeply that even if he does not call for the mother is totally aware of his condition and is looking after him. Now, these are moments where in the Islamic perspective they tell you how much a mother loves her child, that no matter what a child might do, she will still love him no matter what and forgive him. And God's love is 70 times more equivalent to that. True merciful love, of forgiveness, of mercy. And this is what Imam Al-Ghazali is teaching us, is to always keep faith in God. And there are moments in our human life where we believe something didn't work out, or God doesn't like me, or I'm having issues, or I'm experiencing one thing after another. Who knows what you're being prepared for? You do have to go through the spiritual crisis, right? Maybe it can last for a moment, it can last for a year, it can last for a season, but it will work out accordingly for you, because if you do not go through those struggles and endeavors, then you wouldn't be who you are today. And a lot of people do fall into those traps of darkness where they're taught to basically fall astray from the path of God and fall into darkness, and they ultimately end up destroying their own self. But those who keep the faith and those who take things one day at a time, no matter what happens, ultimately become better for it. Whether it's the Masonic path, Sufi path, any initiatic, philosophical, or religious path, knowing that I am starting a journey, and it's not always going to be sunshines and rainbows. There are going to be moments where I have to face myself, my inner struggles, the world around me, become a better person, deal with those who are treacherous in organizations and outside of organizations, deal with those who are friendly and true brothers and true friends in organizations and outside of them, and know how to best operate yourself in that equilibrium, knowing that it's all connected in some way, and how even all of the religions are all connected in some way, all of the philosophies and groups are all connected in some way. It's all teaching you the same exact thing in their own interpretation, and why you must keep that full conviction in the Creator's plan as well, that throughout your life, your childhood, your teenage years, your adulthood, and so on and so forth, that it's all a divine plan, that whatever you're working for and striving for, when you are ready for it and you'll be able to handle it, then it will be given to you. Whether it's a relationship, marriage, the job that you're looking for, when you're in a position where you have matured and offered growth and conviction in self, God, and others, that's when certain things will come to you. But until then, you're in a spiritual school. And that's just like the mother who loves her child no matter what, but will also educate him so he can be a great being that he or she is meant to become in this human life. God is in that same way. Why the Mason puts his complete trust in God in his lifelong quest of self-mastery, knowledge, and to smooth out his ashlar. And the same thing the Sufi does. Tawakkul, trust Allah no matter what, and to be on that quest of knowledge, of love, light, happiness, and knowledge. And that's what we must all strive to do, knowing no matter what, the divine eye of the Creator, the grand architect of the universe with his eye is always watching us, how we see in Masonic symbolism, and how we see in one of the attributes of Allah, al-Basir, the all-seeing, the all-knowing, that don't ever think in your journey that you've been abandoned or you're alone. Sometimes those moments of seclusion and growth are needed, especially for those that are walking these paths. So think about that. This is one of my favorite ones because it tells you the totality and truth of man and his nature. Man's nature is made up of 4 elements, which produces in him 4 attributes, namely the beastly, the brutal, the satanic, and the divine. In man there is something of the pig, the dog, the devil, and the saint. And that is the reality that we're dealing with. Order out of chaos, the black and white tiles, good times, bad times, good times, the cosmology of good and evil, and how Allah says in the Holy Quran that both good and evil come from Him. But in reality, it is a test. Everything is a test. And we all possess that God gene within us, but also that element of darkness, which also is a representation of the Creator in its own way, which is testing us in this chess game between the divinity and the darkness, ultimately with Allah being the only reality, or God being the only reality. The grand architect of the universe in his divine plan is basically trying to understand itself through itself. And those elements are within all of you. It's within each and every one of us, and why you must come to that balance of the yin and the yang within yourself. Do the shadow work. Do the honing of yourself. What Imam Al-Ghazali also teaches us. Sharpening your senses. Be alert. Fight the ego. Fight the darkness within your own self. Because what he said earlier, you are your own greatest enemy or your own greatest friend. And those are the elements of the divine and satanic within each and every one of us. This is an esoteric truth, what Imam Al-Ghazali is teaching us, that not many are ready to accept or ready to admit in their journeys. Because one cannot exist without the other. Light cannot exist without the darkness. Darkness cannot exist without the light. With darkness first, the first thing that was in existence, it was all dark. And then the light came. So we need both. Because if only one existed, then the other would lose its purpose. If there was no Batman, Joker would not have a purpose. If there was no Joker, Batman would not have a purpose. Vice versa, Neo and Smith and all those things. So we have to realize of this human life, we look at ourselves where even those that are walking paths of divinity and self-mastery, there are moments where even they get angry. There are moments of anger and hatred, and that's the dark satanic element that's there. And basically, if we see Allah is the only reality, then what is it that we're really dealing with? Who is God? Who is the devil? If both good and evil are coming from that source, then we are being tested in this grand divine game to master ourselves and to do the right thing. And that is ultimately the human test that you've been given. Is basically you're being tested by the same being, the same exact being in two different forms in the terms of light and darkness. But you have to realize that you also been given free will. And those in the Sufi and the Masonic paths will know this. And you've been taught to do the right thing. Put your complete trust in God, knowing the ultimate grand scheme of things of what this totality and this truth and this reality is really about. And once you do that, once you master the self, and once you chip away at your rough ashlar until it becomes a smooth ashlar, for the Mason, the Sufi, the same thing, to lose his self in the love of Allah, and fana, annihilation of the self, and tawakkul, and tawheed, and all of those things, and tazkiya ul-nafs, the purification of the self, ego, the love of this world, then you are on the right path. But when you're on this path, don't deny the other features that exist inside of you, where even in the Sufi path they tell you to keep a balance between deen and dunya, that you have to walk the middle path, because one extremity of the other is not going to serve you in any way. Just like how you have the black and white tiles and the good times, bad times, good times, one not being able to exist without the other. So find that balance within yourself by walking the middle path. Whichever initiatic path you walk, it's relative to all, to find that truth and totality of the Creator and who you are as a representation of that totality on this earth, experiencing life and these experiences, and to do the right thing with the time that you've been given. And that is a conclusion and epiphany you must come on your own conclusion as well, by looking within yourself and realizing, who am I and what is my purpose? And each day you question that, you get close to that, you will realize and get closer to your own journey and reflection. For all of our paths differ in their own ways. And that is a truth. You must come to it on your own. This is relative to the Memento mori in the Masonic path and in the Islamic Sufi path, where it tells you that one day you do have to leave this earth, the reality of death. Live as long as you may, but know that one day you will die. Love whomever you wish, but know that one day you will taste separation. Do whatever you want, but know that one day you will be held accountable. And this is telling you, for those that get lost in the illusion of this life, thinking that they're going to get away with everything and not realizing that one day you will be held accountable. And you do pay a price for your actions. whether it's good or bad. The grand architect of the universe in the Masonic symbolism, the all-seeing eye, is always observing all your actions. In the Islamic Sufi path, the attributes of the 99 names of Allah, one of the names being al-Basir. God is always watching you. Allah is always watching you. You don't get away with anything. Those that are rich and famous, if you really look at it, a lot of those people are empty. Half of them are on drugs. Others are spiritually suffering because many of them realize what they had to do to get that money. Some of them got involved in systems and endeavors which does not serve the higher purpose of man or their own self, and they live with guilt and regret. So they're not happy. So many people we know that were rich and famous just in these last 4 to 5 years alone. Those that have been keeping up with world events will know what I'm talking about. So realize that the money and the wealth and fame of this world is really nothing. You are going to die one day, and you have to accept that. That if today was my last day on earth, is there anybody that I did wrong? Is there anybody that I need to make up to apologize, to give them a call, send them a text message, send them a letter? To the very minimum, just to clean your conscience and your ego and your lower self. So if that moment does come for you, whether the other party responds to you or not, you did the right thing by letting go. The gift and the attribute of detachment from this world and the illusions that come with it. And that is the important thing that you're being taught in the Masonic path, Memento mori, that one day you will have to pay a price for your actions. This one life that you've been given, make the best of it while you have it. And to do the right thing, be a charitable, good human being who's smoothing out his ashlar, trusting God, trusting the divine architect. The Sufi, the same way, who's living his life, dedicating his love to his beloved, Allah, the grand architect, and doing the right thing with prayer, meditation, helping each other, helping humanity, helping self. That's exactly what it is, to realize one day you will be held accountable and make the best of this human life while you've been given it. This is the ultimate truth for Sufism, for Freemasonry, any initiatic, religious, or philosophical path you might walk. This is the truth you must come to. So forgive, forget, love, have mercy upon each other, just how your Creator has mercy upon you. Try to help those if it's within your capability to do so. The Sufi and Mason both realizing that. And do the right thing with the human life that you've been given in your pursuit of knowledge, self-mastery, to love thyself, love each other, love your family, your friends, but also be aware of the treacherous journey that can come in this path, but also keeping your faith in God and knowing of what reality we're dealing with at the end of the day. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you were able to get something from the teachings of Imam Al-Ghazali and of course my Sufi and Masonic interpretation of his teachings. Of course, I represent myself only as a free man under free speech, and I do not represent any Sufi order or any Grand Lodge statements or opinions or any Sufi or Masonic authority in any way, shape, or form. I represent myself only as a free man under free speech. If any questions or comments, please email me at salmansheikh911@gmail.com. All images used were retrieved from public domain searches and are in the rightful property of their respective owners. The images used in this video are for the purpose of nonprofit, awareness, and education, which is protected by the copyright laws of fair use, education purpose. All my videos are for nonprofit and education purposes. And with that said, I wish you all a great rest of December 2021 ahead, and may the new year ahead and the remainder of 2021 bring blessings for you and yours as we take heed to the teachings of Imam Al-Ghazali and walk our paths with conviction and happiness and strength, welcoming all the good times and bad times that will be there to shape us for the coming year ahead. Much love to all of you. All rights reserved.